Okay, think about this for a second. In the middle of a massive, chaotic crowd, we're talking shouting, sirens, total confusion. A crime is committed. The challenge seems, well, almost impossible. How do you catch a killer hidden among literally thousands of faces?
That right there, that's the raw, unfiltered cry from the streets of Nairobi on June 25th. It's the exact moment a protest turned deadly. But in the age of the smartphone, every single person is a potential witness, a potential camera.
Now, the official story, the one from the top, was that organized criminals were to blame. But an absolutely unprecedented digital investigation was about to piece together the real truth, frame by frame, using footage from the very hands of the people who were there.
So how in the world did a collection of photos and videos, just a series of simple clicks on a phone, manage to unravel the events of that day and point directly to the killers? All right, let's dive into this.
So, back in June, blood was spilled on the grounds of Kenya's parliament. A day that started as a protest against a really controversial government finance bill, it ended in absolute tragedy, leaving a whole nation in shock and, of course, demanding answers.
3 young men lost their lives. And we have to remember, these aren't just names. David Chege, he was a software engineer who ran a Sunday school. Erickson Mutisya, a butcher. And Eric Shieni, a university student. Their deaths became the heart of a citizen-led search for justice.
That same evening, this was the official narrative coming from President William Ruto. He said he regretted the deaths, but he also praised the security forces and put the blame squarely on the protesters themselves.
But here's where it gets interesting. A massive trove of open-source evidence, and we're not talking a handful of clips, we're talking over 5,000 images and videos, was about to completely challenge that story. By mapping and syncing all this digital testimony, a much more disturbing picture started to emerge. So, what brought over 100,000 people to the streets in the first place? Well, it all started with one piece of legislation, the 2024 Finance Bill. And right here, you can see the complete disconnect. The government was arguing that these new tax hikes on basic goods were totally necessary to manage the national debt. But for so many Kenyans on the ground, this just felt like they were being punished for rampant government corruption, making an already tough life basically impossible. Feeling completely unheard by the political class, Kenya's youth, the so-called Gen Z, basically took matters into their own hands. Using social media, they organized a nationwide movement with a super clear and powerful goal: Occupy Parliament. And on June 25th, they showed up. What began as a peaceful, almost carnival-like demonstration would escalate into a historic and, tragically, violent confrontation. Here's how that day unfolded.
The day just unraveled with incredible speed. Inside Parliament, you've got MPs debating. Outside, this massive crowd is gathering peacefully. But as police tactics got harsher and word spread that the bill had actually passed, the mood just completely shifted. And then at 2:20 p.m., the dam broke. Protesters surged right onto the parliamentary grounds.
In the chaos that followed, shots were fired and lives were lost. Now, we're going to break down minute by minute how footage shot by ordinary citizens was used to reconstruct these killings and identify who was responsible. It's pretty incredible stuff. Okay, our first case focuses on David and Erickson. They were gunned down together as police advanced up Parliament Road. The question is, with so many officers right there, how do you find the one person who pulled the trigger? The process was just so methodical. First, investigators synced up multiple videos to pinpoint the exact moment of the gunshots. Then, they scanned all that footage for unique identifiers, and the power of this whole technique came down to one tiny detail: a single officer with a distinct upturned neck guard on his helmet. That became the key to tracking him through the chaos. Following that one unique detail through the digital evidence trail led them straight to this man. Multiple sources identified him as Jean Kaboy, a plainclothes officer. And chillingly, in the moments right before the shots, audio evidence actually captures him repeatedly urging his colleagues to kuwa, which is the Swahili word for kill. The second victim, Eric Shieni, was killed inside the parliament grounds during a chaotic retreat. So once again, investigators turned to all that crowdsourced footage to answer the question, who shot the 27-year-old student?
Now, unlike the first case, this time it wasn't a single detail, but a combination of them. The shooter's uniform had 4 specific features: a white shoulder patch, a matte green helmet, tan boots, and a solid stock rifle. The key here is that these details together created a unique visual signature, almost like a fingerprint.
So after combing through over 150 images and videos taken within just minutes of the shooting, investigators found that only one person on the scene matched all 4 of those criteria. And his uniform and badge identified him not as a police officer, but as a soldier from the Kenyan Defense Forces, the KDF.
You can imagine the events of June 25th sent a massive shockwave through the entire country. The evidence captured by regular citizens directly contradicted the official story, and the government was suddenly forced to respond to a nation that was watching, recording, and demanding accountability.
So remember, this was President Ruto's initial take on the protesters on the evening of the killings, a really hardline stance that put all the blame on them.
But then, get this, less than 24 hours later, his tone had done a complete 180. In this stunning reversal, he conceded to the protesters' demands and refused to sign the bill into law. The pressure was just too immense to ignore. That's what it took. One generation, feeling pushed to the absolute brink, to organize and rise up. A single spark of defiance from young Kenyans, amplified through thousands of screens, managed to change the entire trajectory of their country's politics in just a matter of days.
But here's the thing. While the bill is dead, the fight for justice is definitely not. The evidence is out there for everyone to see, yet no one has been held officially accountable for the deaths of David, Erickson, and Eric. And so the question that hangs over Kenya now is a really heavy one. Was this the final battle, or was it just the first shot in a much longer revolution?